I just wanted to say that I'm a nerd. And I'm here tonight to stand up for the rights of other nerds. I'm a nerd, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Remember when the word nerd wasn't cool? Before coding made people billionaires and before every tech founder started wearing hoodies like a uniform, there was Revenge of the Nerds. It was 1984's love letter to pocket protectors and bad haircuts. A raunchy campus comedy that somehow doubled as social commentary without anyone really noticing. The nerds got the girls, the jocks got humiliated, and America briefly reconsidered whether wedgies were really that funny. This was the same year Prince released Purple Rain, Apple launched the Macintosh, and Ghostbusters proved that nerds with proton packs could save the world. The zeitgeist was shifting. But behind those laughs lies a production story weirder than Lambda Lambda Lambda's initiation ritual. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Revenge of the Nerds that you probably didn't know. Now, if you love retro deep dives into the movies that defined a generation, for better or worse, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Now let's get into the countdown with number 15. The signature nerd laugh was invented by James Cromwell. You know that laugh, that high-pitched honking cackle that sounded like a goose trying to escape a physics exam.
You're smart, easygoing, get your father's good looks.
It became the battle cry of every underdog from 1984 onward, and it was invented completely by accident. During the very first scene filmed, when James Cromwell, playing Louis Skolnick's dad, drops his son off at college, he suddenly let out an awkward, spastic giggle that nobody saw coming. Robert Carradine, still trying to figure out what goose honk in the script even meant, immediately copied it. The entire nerd ensemble followed suit, turning one weird dad moment into the movie's comedic DNA. Talk about setting the tone on day one. Now here's where it gets even better. At a cast screening months later, Cromwell revealed he'd subconsciously borrowed the sound from his ex-wife's real laugh, which is either the sweetest tribute or the pettiest revenge, depending on how that divorce went. Imagine sitting in a theater hearing your signature cackle weaponized for comedy gold, reproduced by an entire cast as well. That's a special kind of emotional damage. Number 14, the college nearly refused permission after reading the script. Revenge of the Nerds almost didn't exist, at least not in Tucson. The University of Arizona initially granted permission to film, probably expecting some wholesome coming-of-age story about friendship and calculus. You know, like The Paper Chase with better hair. Then they actually read the script.
We're college men now.
Isn't college great?
It's gonna be a great year.
Campus groups, especially the sorority council, hit the brakes hard, calling the dialogue sexist and objecting to lines like "we've got Bush," which, yeah, that's fair.
Wow. We've got Bush.
Oh, hair pie.
This was 1983 after all, when MTV told you what cool looked like. Yuppies worshiped power suits and car phones, and gender roles were more rigid than ogres' biceps, making a bunch of pocket protector wearing misfits overthrowing jocks feel legitimately dangerous. The university threatened to pull the plug entirely, leaving director Jeff Kanew and the producers scrambling to save 6 weeks of planned shooting. They flew in for damage control, pitching the movie not as a sex comedy but as an inspirational story about the victory of the victim. Technically, they weren't lying, just strategically framing the truth like a lawyer at a zoning hearing. It worked. The university agreed, helped by a reported $10,000 campus payment and a promise to avoid anything too questionable with regards to taste. Turns out, even good taste has a cost. Plot twist, the school used that money to improve handicapped facilities. Number 13, Robert Carradine and Anthony Edwards tested their costumes at real fraternity rushes. Before cameras rolled, Robert Carradine and Anthony Edwards went full method, and not in a cool Daniel Day-Lewis way, more like let's get publicly humiliated to understand our characters way. In this case, dedication looks less like Oscar bait and more like social suicide. During rush week at the University of Arizona, the duo dressed in full nerd gear, pocket protectors, taped glasses, high-water pants, and crashed real fraternity events to see how believable their transformations were. This was their audition, except the judges didn't know they were actors, and absolutely 0 points were awarded for trying. Spoiler alert though, it was very believable. According to Carradine, one frat leader took a single glance at them and muttered "no way," before turning them away without a second thought. Not even a courtesy thanks for coming, just immediate rejection based on aesthetics and pocket protector placement. Edwards, who reportedly had serious reservations about playing such a stereotype, admitted the rejection confirmed exactly how society labeled people like their characters. Suddenly, the exaggerated performances felt grounded in something uncomfortably real. When they showed up to set, they weren't just playing outsiders, they'd actually been rejected just like them. Number 12, a real Lambda 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 fraternity now exists, and it's actually wholesome. Life imitated art when the Tri-Lambs stopped being fictional. In 2006, 22 years after the movie premiered, 10 students at the University of Connecticut said, you know what, let's actually do this. Because apparently 2 decades wasn't enough time to realize that founding a fraternity based on a movie where nerds install hidden cameras might not be the best optics. But here's the twist, they got it right. They founded a real co-ed fraternity called Lambda Lambda Lambda, inspired by Revenge of the Nerds, but without all the problematic surveillance equipment.
Yeah, everybody except for, Lambda Lambda Lambda.
Here's one who'll see us.
Lambda Lambda Lambda.
Yeah.
They officially avoided affiliation with UConn's interfraternity and Panhellenic councils, which is Greek speak for we're doing our own thing, thanks, and you can keep your hazing rituals. The organization actually grew, adding a SUNY Buffalo chapter before some eventually went inactive. Turns out even idealistic fandoms can escape college burnout, graduation timelines, and the reality that running a frat requires actual organizational skills. Who knew? Still, the UConn chapter kept the spirit alive, hosting movie nights and embracing a code of open membership regardless of gender, race, or background.
Clap your hands, everybody, and everybody clap your hands. We Lambda, 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 and oh, make a move.
For once, Lambda 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 wasn't a punchline, it was a badge of honor. Number 11. Booger initially didn't want the role. It's hard to imagine anyone but Curtis Armstrong picking his nose and belching his way into 80s infamy, but he almost said no. Hard no, like, you've got to be kidding me, no. Fresh off Risky Business and pushing 30, Armstrong considered himself a serious, classically trained actor with legitimate stage credentials. He auditioned for Gilbert, the smart one, not the gross one. When casting redirected him to Booger, he was horrified. According to Armstrong, he told his agent, there's nothing there. Nothing. Seeing the character as a one-note gross-out gag with zero depth or arc. Just belching, nose-picking, and probably some unspecified bodily functions the script hadn't gotten to yet.
Hey guys, we got dates.
Who?
Judy's gonna invite the Omega Moos over.
Oh no, not the moose.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of pigs.
But Armstrong needed the money, because art doesn't always pay the rent, and landlords famously don't accept "but I'm a serious actor" as currency, so he reluctantly signed on. During a pre-production retreat, he pitched a backstory. What if Booger was secretly intelligent, masking his brains behind disgusting antics as a defense mechanism? The director loved it, and that collaboration turned a cheap joke into a cult legend. Suddenly, Booger wasn't just gross, he was strategically gross, which is honestly more disturbing but infinitely more interesting. Armstrong later confessed the film saved his career, even if it also typecast him forever as that guy who eats boogers.
I thought I was looking at my mother's old douchebag, but that's in Ohio.
According to cast interviews, many of his co-stars, including Robert Carradine and Timothy Busfield, only joined for the paycheck too, meaning a bunch of actors embarrassed to be there ended up defining an entire genre of 80s college chaos. Sometimes desperation creates magic, and sometimes it creates characters you never live down. Number 10. A Dallas test screening almost killed the movie. Before Revenge of the Nerds became a cult hit, it nearly died in Texas, which, knowing Texas, kinda tracks. When 20th Century Fox tested the movie in Las Vegas, the audience scored it a glowing 85. Respectable. Executives popped champagne bottles and assumed they had a sleeper hit on their hands. This was it. The nerd uprising would be televised, celebrated, and monetized. Then they screened it in Dallas and everything crashed harder than a jock face-planting during a tricycle race. The score plummeted into the 60s. Brutal. Director Jeff Kanew told the Arizona Daily Star later, "You're gonna send us to Dallas to screen a movie that celebrates nerds and where the black guys intimidate white football players?" He wasn't wrong. The demographic mismatch was spectacular. Executives panicked, slashed the marketing budget, and reduced the release to just 364 theaters instead of a proper nationwide rollout. They basically gave up before opening weekend even arrived, which is the studio equivalent of "we tried nothing and we're all out of ideas." But here's the twist. word of mouth saved the day. Viewers kept showing up, bringing friends, VHS copies made the rounds, and by the end of its run, Nerds had quietly grossed over $40 million against its modest budget. Number 9, Booger's legendary belch came from a camel. The greatest belch in cinema history wasn't even human. Let that sink in for a second. Contemplate it. Marinate in the implications. During the film's infamous belching contest, Booger faces off against Ogre in a beer-fueled battle of digestive supremacy. The crowd cheers, the music swells, and Booger unleashes a monster 7-second belch that sounds less like a man and more like a dying foghorn announcing the apocalypse. Curtis Armstrong confessed in later interviews that he couldn't belch on command, not even a little one, let alone a championship-level rumble that could register on the Richter scale, so the sound team improvised. They spliced in an actual recording of a camel in the middle of an orgasm. Yeah, that's correct. The ultimate nerd victory noise came from an overexcited desert mammal having the time of its life. According to Armstrong, he found out later and couldn't stop laughing, which is the only appropriate response to learning your defining cinematic moment came from a very enthusiastic camel. Sound editors have since listed it among the most bizarre Foley choices ever made, right up there with using walrus mating calls for dinosaurs in someone's lunch for alien gore. In Hollywood, when you can't find the right sound, someone eventually says, just try the camel file. Because in Hollywood, there's always a camel file. Always. Number 8, the scenes between Booger and Takashi were completely improvised. Sometimes the best comedy happens when there's no script at all. Just two actors killing time between setups and accidentally creating magic. On the first day of shooting inside the gym, Curtis Armstrong and Brian Tochi just happened to get cots next to each other. Director Jeff Kanew told them to come up with something while waiting for lighting adjustments, which is director speak for I'm busy, entertain yourselves. So they borrowed a deck of cards from the props team and started riffing. The now famous card scene where Booger hustles Takashi with the confidence of a Vegas dealer who's seen some things was completely improvised on the spot with zero script. Just two actors vibing and hoping something stuck.
Okay, Takashi, now show me your cards.
Okay, 2 and 4 kings. That's good, yes?
No, you got too many kings.
Oh.
So you gotta get rid of these. Here,
Oh.
we'll take 3 of these kings out, and we'll replace them with 3 fresh cards.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
According to cast interviews, Kanew loved it so much he told them to keep ad-libbing in every shared scene, trusting their chemistry over whatever was on the page. Armstrong joked years later that none of it was planned, they just kept thinking, what would Booger and Takashi do next? Turns out the answer was steal every scene they were in without even trying. Now, in between camel orgasms and blind actors, and yes, you heard that right, we'll get into that, hit like and subscribe. Consider it revenge for all those wedgies the algorithm gave us. Seriously, it does help us keep digging up these fresh, weird facts. Now, let's get back to the countdown. With number 7, Poindexter's glasses made Timothy Busfield practically blind. Timothy Busfield didn't have to act awkward as Poindexter, he literally couldn't see where he was going. Those thick prescription lenses weren't a costume choice, they were a legitimate safety hazard with vintage frames. The iconic glasses were so distorted, they turned him effectively blind during filming. Every time Poindexter shuffled across a room looking nervous and unsteady, that was legitimate survival instinct combined with hoping nobody left furniture in unexpected places. According to production accounts, crew members had to discreetly guide him between marks, especially in scenes involving movement, dancing, or anything requiring depth perception, which, in a college comedy, is basically every scene. In interviews years later, Busfield confessed that the impaired vision actually helped him find the character's rhythm. Socially anxious, unsure, and perpetually one step away from disaster.
According to your bylaws, you have to take us on a 60-day trial basis.
I beg your pardon?
According to your bylaws.
He's right.
The production could have swapped the lenses for clear plastic, but the exaggerated magnification looked too good on camera to lose. So he kept stumbling through takes, trusting his castmates to steer him clear of walls, furniture, and whatever else might be lurking in his blurry peripheral vision. Number 6, Andrew Cassisi was shielded from the film's R-rated chaos. Not everyone on Revenge of the Nerds was old enough to know what was happening around them. Andrew Cassisi, who played Harold Wormser, was only 12 during filming, which meant director Jeff Kanew spent 6 weeks making absolutely sure the kid didn't witness anything that would require explaining to his parents later or ever. To him, it was just a comedy about friendship and acceptance. Nerds finding their place in the world.
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, I was thinking mostly of the aerospace field. But then when I got into college, I decided that I wanted something a little more challenging.
For everyone else, it was chaos, camels, and plot lines that would later require cultural reassessment. 2 completely different movies shot simultaneously on the same set. Cassisi revealed years later he had no idea what he'd actually been part of until he saw the final cut, and was genuinely shocked by what he'd missed. Childhood preserved, but only just.
Isn't this gonna make a lot of noise?
It's got a built-in silencer.
Somewhere, his parents breathed a sigh of relief that their 12-year-old spent 6 weeks on a raunchy college comedy set and somehow came out unscathed with his innocence intact and 0 awkward questions being asked. It's like being at a party where everyone's doing things you don't understand, but you're just happy to be included. Number 5, a 2006 remake was canceled mid-production. Hollywood tried to reboot Revenge of the Nerds once, and it didn't even survive 2 weeks. In 2006, 20th Century Fox launched a remake under its youth-focused label Fox Atomic, a studio division that would itself be dead within 2 years, so maybe the writing was on the wall. The remake starred Adam Brody, Jenna Dewan, Efren Ramirez, and Christopher Marquette, with Kyle Newman directing. The plan was to recapture that 80s magic for a 2007 release. The reality was that it was a day one disaster. Emory University in Atlanta revoked filming permission after actually reading the script and deciding essentially, absolutely not, get off our campus. Deja vu from the original production, except this time, nobody fell for the inspirational underdog story pitch. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and we're calling security. The production scrambled to nearby Agnes Scott College. Smaller, prettier, but terrible for big campus scenes and crowd shots, like trying to film a stadium concert in a coffee shop. However, the final blow came when studio executive Peter Rice was screening the dailies and not happy or satisfied with what he saw and called it flat and too small in scope. Production shut down immediately. The cast was dismissed, sets were dismantled, and nostalgia was canceled. Everyone went home wondering what just happened and updated their resumes. Fox shelved the project permanently. In 2020, Seth MacFarlane announced a possible reboot through his Fuzzy Door Productions, proving that some ideas never fully die. They just go into a coma for a decade and occasionally show signs of life when someone checks the IP library for content. Number 4, some cast members eventually reconsidered how certain scenes played. Time changes everything, including how we watch 80s comedies, and A Revenge of the Nerds has that one scene everyone remembers uncomfortably. The Funhouse moment where Lewis, disguised in a Darth Vader mask as Betty's boyfriend, has sex with her, hasn't aged like fine wine. Director Jeff Kanew eventually said in interviews, "If it were my daughter, I probably wouldn't like it," which is the diplomatic way of saying, yeah, we probably should have thought that through. Writer Steve Zacharias went further. He completely changed the moment in a stage adaptation so Lewis reveals himself before anything happens.
He did things to me you've never done before. You're that nerd.
Yeah.
Basically admitting the original version crossed a line they didn't see at the time. Even actress Michelle Mayrink acknowledged in 2019, "In the 80s we didn't see it," which, yeah, that tracks. The 80s were a time when a lot of things flew under the radar, like questionable consent and thinking shoulder pads were a good idea. The filmmakers also expressed regret in later interviews about the voyeuristic hidden camera scenes, which is refreshing honesty, even if it does come decades late.
Almost there, Wormser?
This should do it.
Here's the thing. You can love a movie and still recognize it comes with baggage. Revenge of the Nerds has fans, it has laughs, and it does have a legacy, but it also has uncomfortable moments that show how much we've learned since then. Sometimes nostalgia requires footnotes, and this is one of those times. Number 3, Brian Tochi got actually drunk filming the tricycle race. When Takashi wobbles through the tricycle race looking hilariously unsteady, it's because actor Brian Tochi was genuinely drunk, and it was his choice, which is either dedication to the craft or questionable decision-making, depending on your stance on method acting and liability waivers. Before filming, according to Tochi, he was given an option: drink real beer or use soda dressed up to look like beer for the cameras. Being a committed professional, or possibly just wanting the authentic experience, he chose the real thing. Because why fake it when you can actually impair your motor skills for art? After multiple takes from different angles, he downed enough to be legitimately tipsy.
Okay, come on.
You feeling okay, Tashiro?
Oh, great.
Go!
By the time the race wrapped, his unsteady riding wasn't acting, it was physics versus alcohol in real time, captured on 35mm film for posterity. Every wobble, every near collision, and every confused facial expression is 100% genuine intoxication. In later interviews, Tochi admitted he was pretty gone by the last few runs, but the footage worked too well to reshoot. His honest drunken stumble became one of the funniest physical gags in the movie. Number 2, Poindexter was almost named Lipschultz. Imagine Timothy Busfield nervously introducing himself as Arnold Lipschultz instead of Poindexter. It almost happened, and it would have been a disaster, like career-altering bad. During early production, the nerd violinist's name was literally lifted from a crew member, a prop master named Lipschultz, as an inside joke that seemed hilarious in the writer's room, because writers' rooms in the 80s evidently ran on caffeine, cocaine, and questionable decisions. When word got around set, the real Lipschultz was decidedly not amused. According to production stories, the man threatened to quit unless they changed it, which is a power move that deserves respect. So, the writer scrambled and swapped it for Poindexter, a term already synonymous with nerdiness thanks to Felix the Cat and decades of playground insults. The change fit perfectly, becoming one of cinema's most enduring geek names. Busfield revealed the story years later at a San Francisco Sketchfest reunion, laughing that Lipschultz sounded more like a law firm than a party guest, or a deli.
I got a call from my agent saying they want you to read for a character of Lipschultz, who was all they had was a violin playing Henry Kissinger, is what they wrote.
Definitely more deli than dorm room though. It's a small behind-the-scenes tweak, but it shows how even trivial details, a name, a last-minute rewrite, or one annoyed prop master can ripple into pop culture permanence. Number 1, the movie launched careers nobody expected. Revenge of the Nerds was nobody's idea of a prestige project. Most of the cast signed on for a paycheck and assumed it would disappear into cable obscurity within 6 months. However, instead it launched careers, became a cultural touchstone, and somehow inspired a real fraternity. Robert Carradine became forever linked to Louis Skolnick, playing the character in 3 sequels and a TV pilot that never got picked up. Curtis Armstrong turned Booger into a Hall of Fame gross-out character, carved out a steady career in character roles, and never had to pay for drinks at Comic-Con again. Anthony Edwards went on to become Dr. Mark Green on ER, proving that nerds really do grow up to save lives. Timothy Busfield became a TV staple, appearing in everything from 30-something to The West Wing, showing remarkable range for a guy who spent 6 weeks stumbling around blind in taped glasses. James Cromwell graduated to Oscar nominations and serious dramatic roles, which means somewhere there's a timeline where Babes Farmer invented the nerd laugh, and honestly, that tracks. Even young Andrew Cassisi carved out a steady career in television, blissfully unaware he'd been surrounded by chaos the entire time. The movie that nobody thought would matter ended up mattering to an entire generation of misfits who finally saw themselves as the heroes instead of the punchline. It spawned sequels, inspired a real frat, launched careers, and permanently associated the word Trilam with underdogs everywhere. And there you have it, 15 weird facts about Revenge of the Nerds. Which one surprised you the most? Was it the belch that's actually an orgasmic camel, the Dallas test screening disaster, or maybe that James Cromwell accidentally invented an entire subculture's battle cry? Be sure to subscribe and share this with a friend who loves 80s college comedies, or anyone who's ever perfected that laugh. Until next time, this is Remember When.